this English lesson, we'll read a CNN news article together. And as we read the article, you'll learn advanced English vocabulary in context. You'll learn the correct grammar and the correct pronunciation at the same time. This is an advanced article discussing how artificial intelligence, like ChatGPT, can cause your brain to rot. If you can understand this article, your English is excellent. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started.
Our headline, MIT researchers say using ChatGPT can rot your brain. So here, MIT researchers, this is the acronym for a university, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Now they're including that it's MIT researchers because MIT is a prestigious university. So it gives credit instantly to these researchers. Now the subject is they, because of course we have researchers. Researchers say using ChatGPT can rot your brain. So to rot your brain, this is if your brain ability declines or worsens. The verb rot is very commonly used with materials or even plants, for example. It's also very commonly used with food. Any food, here in this example, that banana is rotten. So first of all, notice that pronunciation. I can say rotten, and pronounce those T's, or I can use a glottal stop, which sounds like rotten, which native speakers often do. So here, to be rotten, it describes the state of the banana. Another way of saying it is simply that banana is spoiled. It's black. You don't want to eat it. Or that banana is bad. You can use both of these for food as well, or you can use rotten, which is very common. Now, here is an unfortunate example, which is true for me. We have to redo our deck. So redo means we have to do our deck again. We have to build the deck again because the wood is rotting. So it's in progress now. So this is a very common verb, and in this case, it's used with your brain. Don't worry about taking notes. I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can find the link in the description. Let's keep reading. Since ChatGPT appeared almost 3 years ago, the impact of artificial intelligence, AI, of course, this is the acronym, AI. Now people don't say artificial intelligence, they just say AI because it's well known. AI technologies on learning has been widely debated. Okay, so here, has been, this is our verb, but we see technologies, which is plural. But you have to go back and ask yourself what the subject is, and the subject is the impact. The impact of something, in this case, the something is plural. Technologies, AI technologies, but the subject is still the impact. It has been widely debated. The impact has been widely debated. Now this has been widely debated because it's a ongoing action. So it's been debated in the past and it's still being debated now. Has been widely debated. Widely is the modifier, which means many people. Many people have an opinion on using AI with learning. So that's widely debated. Instead of widely, you could also say has been highly debated, has been extensively debated. Those are common synonyms. Are they handy tools? So to describe something as handy means it's helpful. Are they helpful tools? Are they handy tools for personalized education or gateways to academic dishonesty? So here, when you have a gate is a structure that opens and then you can go through it. So the gate prevents you from going from one side to another. So the gateway is how you can go through it. So AI being a gateway to academic dishonesty, you can picture that AI is the gate that opens, and when you go through it, you get academic dishonesty. So a gateway to academic dishonesty, it means it has created or led students to academic dishonesty. In this context, the gateway leads somewhere negative, but it can also lead somewhere positive. For example, fluent English is a gateway to a better career. So fluent English is what leads you to a better career. It's a gateway. So a gateway because it's a noun. In this case, there's no a because it's plural and you don't need an article with plural nouns. Fluent English is a gateway to a better career. If you believe that fluent English is a positive gateway, maybe to a better career, travel opportunities, friendship, learning, whatever it may be, put that's right, put that's right in the comments. Now let's keep reading. Most importantly, there has been concern that using AI will lead to a widespread dumbing down or decline in the ability to think critically. So the widespread dumbing down, notice widespread, this is similar to widely. Widely describes the verb debated, widely debated, a widespread dumbing down. So a widespread, this is an adjective, a widespread dumbing down. So if it's widespread, it has the same meaning as widely. This is the adverb form, and this is an adjective. And dumbing down is a noun phrase. It means a decline in intelligence. So the decline in intelligence, the decline in critical thinking, the ability to think critically, you could also say the decline in critical thinking, that would be the noun form. That is the brain rot. So rot your brain as a noun, you could also say can cause brain rot. So brain rot is the something, it's the noun. And if brain rot represents a brain that is weakened, less intelligent, and worse over time. So can cause brain rot, that's the noun form. Can rot, that's the verb your brain. So they're the same thing, it's just different grammar.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
If students use AI tools too early, the argument goes, they may not develop basic skills for critical thinking and problem solving. Notice this part here, the argument goes. This is a phrase that represents many people say this. So the this being everything that isn't highlighted. If students use AI too early, they may not develop critical thinking and problem solving. Many people say. So when you're sharing an opinion that may not be your opinion, but you just want to share what many people think on the topic, you can use this phrase, the argument goes. Let's take this statement. If you become fluent in English, you'll have more job opportunities. Now you can add on the argument goes to show that many people think this. Remember, you may think this, hopefully you do, but this statement doesn't focus on you. It just focuses on what many people think. So you can add it here like they did. The argument goes. Now, goes is in the present simple third person singular because it's conjugated with the argument, which is singular. It goes. You can also put it at the end of your sentence as well, separated by a comma, because you need to show the division between ideas. Is more common in mid position. Let's continue. Is that really the case? So the case being this statement here. So is that really the case? This is another way of asking, is that true? Is that accurate? Is that really the case? So does that represent the facts truthfully or accurately is another way of thinking about this. Let's continue. According to a recent study by scientists from MIT, it appears so. So here, this "it appears so" is the response to the question asking, is that really the case? Is that true? Is that accurate? It appears so. But appears so is not the same as saying, yes, that is true. Yes, that is accurate. Because using the word appear is when it seems true, but you're not 100% sure. It appears so. So represents to be true. It appears to be true. It seems to be accurate. So you can use appears or seems. There's an S on it because it's conjugated with the subject it. And this is according to, don't forget that preposition to, and then someone or something. In this case, it's the study. The study is by the scientists, but the according to is the study. And when you say it seems or appears so, there is evidence. So the evidence is in the study, but you're still not 100% certain because there's some evidence in this study, but how conclusive is this study? Maybe the study has limitations, for example. Using ChatGPT to help write essays, the researchers say, can lead to cognitive debt and a likely decrease in learning skills. Cognitive relates to your brain function and brain ability. When people talk about cognitive skills, cognitive ability, it's the way you're able to use your brain. Debt is bad. And notice the pronunciation. The B is silent. Debt, debt. Well, I guess you could argue that there's good debt, like the mortgage for your home, and then there's bad debt, buying a really expensive purse that you can't afford with a credit card. Maybe that's bad debt. It's up to the person to decide. But in this case, cognitive debt represents something negative. Debt, debt. The phrase cognitive debt is not one I have ever used in my speech. However, I understand what it means just based on context, and I've seen it in writing and studies before. So here's an example. Always using a calculator leads to cognitive debt. The argument goes. Notice I added on the argument goes because this suggests that many people think this is true. Now, one that I have used in my day-to-day speech is brain rot. So remember, brain rot is a something, it's a noun. So here, instead of cognitive debt, which to me sounds very technical, very formal, not something I would use, but brain rot sounds more everyday. It sounds more common and it's easily understood. People understand instantly what that means. Now, what is brain rot or cognitive debt? Well, it's the negative effect that accumulates, so grows over time when you rely on outside help instead of your brain. So the outside help in this case could be a calculator. It could be ChatGPT. When you're driving, it could be GPS. If you have a bad sense of direction, it's because you don't practice using your navigational skills. You use GPS. That also describes me. So that is an example of cognitive debt, which is very technical. You can refer to it as brain rot. Let's keep reading. Over the course of 4 months. So the course of is a phrase that's used to represent the duration of time. So you could say over 4 months. The course of just allows you to imagine that period of time more specifically. You could say over the course of the semester in a school. You could also just say over the semester. So over the course of 4 months, the MIT team. Now this article, the, is not connected to MIT because MIT here is an adjective. It describes team. So here it's connected to the team. The team. Which team? The MIT team. The MIT team asked 54 adults to write a series of 3 essays using either AI, ChatGPT. So they're letting you know specifically what AI, ChatGPT, a search engine, which would be Google, or their own brains, brain-only group. The team measured cognitive engagement by examining electrical activity in the brain. So to be honest, I don't exactly know what cognitive engagement is. I know cognitive has to do with your brain, and engagement is how much you're paying attention, how focused you are. So here, cognitive engagement, I would assume, is based on how engaged your brain is. So how effectively your brain is working, how well your brain is working by examining electrical activity in the brain. So they're looking at this scan to see how your brain waves are activating, lighting up to measure the connections between your brain cells. So cognitive engagement by examining electrical activity in the brain and through linguistic analysis of the essays. Linguistic analysis of essays, this is a very advanced way of just saying, and through reviewing the essays. So it would be like when I review my students in the Finally Fluent Academy, I look at their writing and then I can determine what level of English they have. I can determine what areas they need to improve. That's the everyday way of saying the more technical linguistic analysis of the essays. So you could just say review of the essays. Let's keep reading. The cognitive engagement, remember, you can think of this as just your mental ability, your brain's ability to focus or think. So the cognitive engagement of those who used AI was significantly lower than the other 2 groups. This group also had a harder time recalling quotes from their essays. So this group represents the group that used AI. Remember, there were the 3 groups. Used AI, what was the second? Search engines. Right now, this is a measure of your ability to recall information, which is to remember specific information when needed to. And the third group was the brain-only group. Did you get all 3? If you did, you just showed really amazing cognitive engagement. If you didn't, that doesn't mean anything. Okay, the cognitive engagement of those who used AI was significantly lower. Significantly is a more advanced way of saying very much. So very much lower, significantly lower than the other 2 groups. This group, the group that used AI, also had a harder time recalling quotes, so requiring your brain to give you the information exactly when you need it from their essays. So quotes would be, of course, the words of someone else, maybe inspirational or related to a specific study. and felt a lower sense of ownership over them. Them is what? The essays. The essays, from their essays. This is the last plural noun used. So when you want to identify the subject of a pronoun, you look to the last noun used that matches it. So this is the last plural noun, and we have them, which is plural. So if they have a lower sense of ownership, would you feel like you were truly the author of a short story if ChatGPT wrote it for you? Would you say, like, this is my story? Maybe, maybe not. But if you wrote that story based on a dream you had or an experience in your life, you would probably feel a high sense of ownership. Now, this is just a comparative because they're comparing it to the other groups. So you could say a higher sense of ownership compared to if ChatGPT wrote the story, if AI wrote the story. Notice our verb. Our verb is recall, but it's in the ing form. Do you know why? This group also had a harder time recalling quotes. It's because of this phrase, to have, conjugated in the past, then an adjective, time. That is a gerund phrase, and you use the gerund after it. This is a very common phrase. For example, I had a hard time reading this article. Maybe that's what you would say if you had read this article before this review where we learn what all these terms mean. I had a hard time reading this article. I had a hard time writing that essay. I had a hard time preparing the presentation, whatever it might be. Now, you use this probably every single day almost. I had a great time doing something. I had a great time playing games with my kids. Whatever it might be, this is a gerund phrase, and you can replace the adjective with positive or negative adjectives. And remember, your verb is have, and that's what you conjugate. And you need this article, Let's keep going. Current and future generations need to be able to think critically and creatively and solve problems. You could grammatically say and problem solve. Your problem solving skills, for example, so that would be the noun form, and problem solve. But this is a verb. So, and solve problems. It focuses on the verb, which makes sense because this is a verb. And then this tells you how. Think critically and creatively and solve problems. However, AI is changing what these things mean. What does it mean to think critically when we have ChatGPT as a resource? Or to think creatively when we have ChatGPT to write a story for us? Producing essays with pen and paper is no longer a demonstration of critical thinking ability. So a demonstration of, it means no longer demonstrates. So shows. So the verb is demonstrate. So you could say producing essays with pen and paper no longer demonstrates, no longer does the verb. Just like you would say, I no longer live in, and then whatever city you used to live in, or a neighborhood, or I no longer work at Google. Now I work at Amazon, whatever it might be. So you could turn this into the verb form demonstrate, which means to show. A demonstration of critical thinking, this is just the noun form. Let's keep reading. Prioritizing which tasks can be offloaded to an AI. So if you offload a task, it means you take the task from you and you give it to someone else. So another word, I guess, would be delegating. You take a task from you and you give it to someone else, which can be offloaded to an AI, which can be given, you can even use the verb give in a simple way, can be given to an AI to reduce cognitive debt, is just as important as understanding which tasks require genuine creativity and critical thinking. Now, when I first read this, I was a little confused because this word, cognitive debt, is different from the way it's being used before. And because I shared that this isn't a word that's very common in my vocabulary, it took me a second to understand the meaning of it, because in this context, cognitive debt, this is a positive thing. But before they were using it as a negative thing because you want to reduce this cognitive debt. So the cognitive debt in this case represents just your mental workload or your mental load. All the tasks that you need to do, you can think of those tasks as your cognitive debt. So if you have to complete 3 assignments, reply to 20 emails, write your shopping list, all of that is your cognitive debt. There are things that are taking away from your ability to think critically. But they're saying here, you can give these tasks to AI to reduce this strain on your brain, your strain on your brain, this cognitive debt, this mental load that you have. Now, it's just as important as, notice this double as. I see a lot of students forgetting this. As important as. That house is as big as this house. So when you're making a comparison, as, and then adjective, and then another as. So this entire thing is the comparative between this second thing. And in terms of importance, they're equal. If it weren't equal, one would be more important than, less important than. Equal is as important as. And notice we have our ing here, as understanding which tasks require genuine creativity. So genuine creativity means that it's true creativity. It's not the creativity that an AI can do to write a short story, if that is the task. It's true creativity that needs to come from your brain and critical thinking. And that's the end of the article. This article may take many reviews. Remember, you can also download the free PDF so you can review everything, get comfortable with the terms, and then review the full lesson again to hear my explanation. So don't feel surprised if you're overwhelmed by this article. It was quite advanced. But what I'll do now is I'll read the article from start to finish so you can focus on the pronunciation and then also hear all the words that we reviewed again. MIT researchers say using ChatGPT can rot your brain. Since ChatGPT appeared almost 3 years ago, the impact of artificial intelligence, AI, technologies on learning has been widely debated. Are they handy tools for personalized education or gateways to academic dishonesty? Most importantly, there has been concern that using AI will lead to a widespread dumbing down or decline in the ability to think critically. If students use AI tools too early, the argument goes, they may not develop basic skills for critical thinking and problem solving. Is that really the case? According to a recent study by scientists from MIT, it appears so. Using ChatGPT to help write essays, the researchers say, can lead to cognitive debt and a likely decrease in learning skills. Over the course of 4 months, the MIT team asked 54 adults to write a series of 3 essays using either AI, ChatGPT, a search engine, or their own brains, brain-only group. The team measured cognitive engagement by examining electrical activity in the brain and through linguistic analysis of the essays. The cognitive engagement of those who used AI was significantly lower than the other two groups. This group also had a harder time recalling quotes from their essays and felt a lower sense of ownership over them. Current and future generations need to be able to think critically and creatively and solve problems. However, AI is changing what these things mean. Producing essays with pen and paper is no longer a demonstration of critical thinking ability. Prioritizing which tasks can be offloaded to an AI to reduce cognitive debt is just as important as understanding which tasks require genuine creativity and critical thinking.
Do you want to keep learning English with the news? If you do, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. Here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.